We want to underscore again that we're coming to Chicago peacefully, but whether we're given permits or not, we're coming.
It's great to see you, Aniko.
It's wonderful to talk to you. And I was thinking, why do I have only 5 minutes? I have so many questions. I could talk to you for hours. Aaron, when was the first time you heard the word politics?
That's an interesting question. I can't remember the last time or the first time I heard the word, but I can tell you this, that when I was 11 years old, I had a crush on a girl in my class that I went to school named Jenny. And Jenny was volunteering after school at the local campaign headquarters for someone who was running for office. And so I thought it'd be a good idea if I volunteered too. So I went and were stuffing envelopes and everything. And that Saturday, they took all the volunteers and they put them in a bus, and they took us to the next town over because Richard Nixon, who was running for re-election as president, his campaign motorcade was going to be coming through. And they wanted us holding signs that said, "McGovern for president." And I was holding one of those signs when a woman came up from behind me, grabbed the sign out of my hand, hit me over the head with it, threw it on the ground, and stomped on it. And the only political agenda I've ever had my entire life is the slim hope that that woman is still alive and that I'm driving her out of her mind. That's my goal with everything I write, that woman when I was 11. Sometimes my goal is to impress Jenny Lavin, but usually it's to bother that woman.
Why can't you run for president? And if you would, what would be on your agenda?
Well, the answer to your first question is there are much better qualified people than me. But if I somehow was parachuted into that job, what would be first on my agenda would be honesty. We simply have to start with honesty. We can't have a leader who cares so little about integrity, who cares so little about character, who cares so little about the country. You know, with The West Wing, I think that what people liked about feeling of that show and the characters, even if they didn't agree with them ideologically, they understood that these people saw public service as a calling, and they woke up every morning thinking about doing the right thing, thinking about us. And they lost as often as they won, and they slipped on banana peels, but always when reaching for the stars. You couldn't say of any of these characters that they were dishonest or lacked integrity.
You still didn't tell me what would be on your agenda.
Education. I believe that education can solve nearly every problem that we have. But I am talking about a full-scale reformation of education. I'm talking about building public schools in America that are cathedrals, where teachers are paid great starting salaries so that these jobs become competitive, and that we get great minds, great teachers, skilled teachers in there who can really invigorate a young person's mind and inspire them, or a school is a place that parents want to send their kids, the best possible place they can be when they're young. That costs money, but that is an investment that we should absolutely be making. Education can solve the problems in our cities. It can solve the problems in our economy. It can create jobs. It can solve crime. It can solve drugs. And right now, kind of a shambles.
We're going to Chicago to protest the Vietnam War.
If you, with all the wisdom you have, could run for president today, what would be on your agenda?
Well, I think I would start some sort of classes in kindness and civility, because we've lost it. We've lost it terribly. People are no longer kind to each other in all respects. They drive too fast. They cut you off on the roads. People take 20 cents and add it to the price of something you've just bought, thinking you won't notice, and most people don't. I am struck very heavily by how conned everybody is from all sorts of sources, not just the current president, but the people who support him, insurance companies, medical companies. Everybody's trying to get your dollar in any way they can. And people, I don't think, are paying enough attention to that lack of civility, that lack of turning the other cheek, that lack of caring about the inner souls of other people. They don't seem to at all. Everything, if you ever have insomnia and you're up all night, just keep clicking the button and go around the stations. You'll see nothing but people conning you. Religious people are conning you. Anybody who has the word doctor in front of his name is conning you. Evangelists are standing up and saying, God wants you to give me money. It's just endless. And the commercials are now much more frequent than the news is.
You're in Budapest.
That's my grandmother up there.
Is it really? Wow. God, that's an amazing painting.
Eddie, when was the first time you heard the word politics? What
I'm
context?
trying to think. I think it must have been, I grew up in the UK in the 80s, and Margaret Thatcher was around, and it was a very kind of rigorous time politically and heated time. So I remember sort of coming, my parents would let me stay up and watch the news. So I must have been about 5 or 6, but I don't think, I understood very little, but probably, let's say 8 or 9. I think that's a bit, the idea that I was sort of politically aware at 5 or 6 is ridiculous. But let's say 8 or 9, yeah.
And when did you become conscious politically?
I don't think I can answer that. I don't think it comes in a specific flood of a moment. It's something where the concerns that you have, the concerns that people around you have, like I remember sort of with the Iraq War and with Tony Blair, and that moment being the whole, and the weapons of mass destruction being incredibly shocking, and realizing, I think as a child, you sort of believe that politicians know what they're doing, and the system is encouraged to make you think that. I think as you get older, and the people that are some of the people rising to power are sort of your age, it becomes more scary because you realize how little you know, and quite often they expose themselves for how little they know.
And how political are you now?
It's a very good question. I believe that advocacy is something that you work on sort of daily. I consistently kind of question myself. I was talking earlier in the meeting about, as someone in the public eye, we're in this sort of world now where there is a sense that as a celebrity or someone that it has, your voice is perhaps over amplified. And with that, I think you have to really question what you speak up about. So I ask myself basically every day, and I believe that we should and can all be advocates in our own way. But I try to generally do that in a grassroots way, in a way that, for example, obviously through playing Stephen Hawking, I met many people living with motor neuron disease, ALS. Now in this country, I'm a patron for the ALS Association. And during our lockdown with COVID, there was this list of people who were on a protected list, and with people that were very vulnerable, and people with ALS weren't on that list. And so whether it was writing to my local politician, through the charity, trying to speak to and lobby people to encourage people now, but that was just on a human level. I try generally to keep my focus on my work, because I find that there can be hypocrisies. Like we're very fortunate actors in the public eye. I have a very lovely life, and I don't like being talked down to by people who aren't specialists in that subject. That being said, when I see other people who are amplifying things that I don't believe in and I think are doing harm, I will add my voice to that. That's probably quite a messy answer, which is perhaps one of the things that I found so important about this film, is that Robert Kennedy Jr. said this kind of a riveting thing that basically democracy is messy, and it's hard, and it's something that is, and I think that this film sort of shows that, but it's something that you've got to kind of fight for.
My trial's begun without my lawyer.
The court assumes you are being represented by the Black Panther sitting behind you.
And finally, what is your real calling, writing or directing?
it's writing. It's funny. I've always considered myself a playwright who can get away with writing a film or get away with writing an episode of television. And now I consider myself a playwright, a screenwriter who can get away with directing. Maybe I'm starting to get more comfortable with it, and I can do a little more than get away with it. But when I write something, I'm not writing something that's meant to be read. I'm writing something that's meant to be performed. And so directing is really just an extension of the writing.
You stay safe.
And you too. And I hope I do see you in person soon.
Not soon enough, not this year.
Not this year, no. Do stay safe, but I promise this will be over. We'll get through this.
And we see each other?
Yeah, we'll see each other.
Where did the beauty, the kindness go?
The first reason I would think it went was the extraordinary power of technology. When I was a young man and I flew in an airplane, I walked up to a desk and a young lady asked me where I was going. She took out a ticket and she filled it out by hand, ripped it off, gave it to me, and I gave her cash for the ticket. That simple human connection is now gone. You go to a box and you put in numbers and your ticket spits out. If that continues every day in your life in which you are not connecting to another person for some service or some idea, people are ordering food to come to the front porch. You take it inside and you've already paid by your credit card. Everybody thinks it's greatly convenient. I think it lessens the power of one-on-one contact and takes its toll. Whether you believe it or not, it starts to take a toll. You have a way to avoid human interaction now. So many toys which keep you from talking. You go to a restaurant, 4 people are having a meal. The little children, 2 of them, are on their computers. The father's on his, the mother's on his. To me, it should be outlawed. And you walk on the street of New York City and people are always bumping into you because they're looking down and they smack the back of you and say, oh, sorry. And they go around you. They don't even stop. They just, So I would say it's a lack of the necessity of becoming involved with another person. You don't have to anymore. And that destroys a certain humanity that should be in our lives every day.
You know what? Let's believe in a better future.
I do believe it. I actually believe we're going to pass through this time and we will be saved by the young because they have the energy and the optimism and the forward thinking that will save us.
God bless you and stay safe.
Thank you. You as well.
Let's talk a little bit about the lockdown and you and kids and Hannah. So how did the whole thing go?
Well, again, Annika, we're so lucky. We have a little farmhouse in the countryside. We have chickens. Hannah is an amazing gardener. So we basically were quite self-sufficient. I've always had a little inkling of a dream. My favorite book when I was a child was this book called Mr. Tick the Teacher, which was a book about a couple who had 6 children and they had a little school and they only had their kind of 6 children in the school. So this was basically, and they were teachers and cooks and everything. And so this was kind of my moment to basically, with my 4-year-old daughter, be Mr. Tick the Teacher. And it was amazing because I got to be there when she first began to read. And I got to, now that being said, we also had our hands full completely. It's been, until my children have just gone to school, but it's been exhausting, but we've been very, very lucky. How are you doing? Some of that, a lot of that.
This is for you. This is for you. I know you are in London, I'm in Budapest, but Eddie, we should meet.
We should. I definitely need some of that. I have some of that pretty much every night, the second that the children go to bed. Hannah and I are like,
this is a bottle of Hungarian wine.
Where is it from? There's that amazing area.
Tokaj.
I miss Hungary. I've been thinking about it a lot recently because I had, we speak about it, but I spent almost a year living in Hungary when I made 2 television series in Budapest. And I miss that city a lot.
Here you go.
Thank you.
And you have to promise me we meet. And we drink it. And big kiss to the kids, to you and Hannah.
Lovely to see you, Annika. Bye-bye.
Here I am. There will be order.
We have to find some courage now.
much is it worth to you? What's your price?
To call off the revolution?
My life.
Hello, Hollywood.